Hello! In this video, we're going to talk about the front of the map for Thames Square. Right? Really, we're talking about this really big building right here. It's basically, I think of like an apartment building, right? But in this video, we're focused on the upstairs. So really, we're focused on the top layer of the house. So basically, we'll talk about everything starting from over here. Right, and if we head in this direction, right? We got the stuff over here, and then we have this little these rooms over here in the back, and then up to here, right? That's really what we're going over in this video, right? So let's just start at the other end because obviously you want to go in order. Alright, so we're starting with the upstairs at the very, very beginning, right? Right, this is where the boundary of the map was, but you can get to the upstairs this way. Right, you can also get to the upstairs by coming from the downstairs in this opening right here, right? So there's an opening here, and yeah, right. So those are two different ways, right? In other ways, you can actually come from this little hole right here, right? And you probably noticed there's an exit area right here that you can jump out of. So that's basically the different openings over here. But basically, you have this room right here. Right, the most common spot in this room, I would say, is to find a melon right here. Right, this is a pretty common spot, right? A melon in this hole. Right, you can of course find flower pots in here, but obviously it's not super obvious that they're there if they're solid. Another spot you might see is if you see like the stack is symmetrical diagonally like this, right? So if you see a melon here, it's fake. Or anywhere where you see the melon stack squared off, like squared off here, squared off here. In this case, it's sort of cubed off, but it's still squared off, depending on how you look at it. That's basically it for the melon stack. You could see a bookshelf hiding right here. This will happen sometimes, right? Sometimes that spot is even replaced with a flower pot. Alright, for the anvils, this is actually a really common structure in many block piles in Block Hunt. Right, this specific structure, right? Really small block pile, but it's really common. You'll see it in other maps like Cookie Town, Desert Village. Many of the other maps are going to have this specific structure. So any deviation from it, like an anvil to the side of it, right, or a square of anvils like this, would be fake. That's basically it for this room. Right, heading over here, this is actually where the stairs come up, right? Over here you have the two hay bales, right? These are actually the two original hay bales that were in the map, right? These used to be the only two hay bales in this map, but now they've changed that. The typical spot is to see like two hay bales on top of each other, right? Sometimes you see two hay bales next to each other like this, right? Sometimes you'll see one next to this hay bale. That's basically it, right? I wouldn't worry about the note blocks too much. Right? I wouldn't worry about the melons too much, right? But obviously if you see them like way too close to each other, like this or this, right? But I'm not going to worry about those too much. There are anvils right here, right? Now notice, there shouldn't be an anvil blocking the window like this, right? It shouldn't be blocking this window, so you shouldn't see an anvil right here. So that would be fake. And lastly, for this room, the flower pot, right? If you see two flower pots on here instead of one, that would be fake. Oh. We have to do that again. Alright, so now we get to this little area. As you can see, there's another set of stairs which can obviously lead to the upstairs. So you have this opening right here, which leads to the upstairs. Right. Now, we have this little region over here, which is actually really interesting. Many times you'll find flower pots behind here. But I think the most important feature about this is actually these block piles. Because, if you recall, this is the same exact structure that we saw in Thames. This is the same exact structure that we saw many times in the museum, right? That same exact structure is exactly what the bookshelves have as well. So really, the TNT stack and the bookshelf stack are identical to each other. That same common structure from the museum. So really, all you're looking for is any deviation from that. Like this, right? Two on top of each other, right? Just like that. I had to say that. Right, but TNTs, it's the same thing, right? You're looking for any deviation, like two in a row, two on top of each other. Many times you'll see the square. This is probably the most common one to see, is to see the square of TNT like this. That's basically it for this little area. Actually, they can also escape out here, right? So I think you should know that too. That's basically it. Next, we are making our way to this next area, which, as you can see, has a little bit of dividers, right? There are many different ways they can move around, like through here as well. Now, basically, all within this little region that I'm sort of walking over right now, they have, obviously, obviously the ground's made of wood, but some of them are actually bookshelves, right? This is actually the top, right? I can sort of show you, I'll become a flower pot, so I can hit it. This is actually the top of a bookshelf. This is the top of a bookshelf, right? And there's 3 other ones, right? There's actually a bookshelf right here in the ground, a bookshelf right here, and a bookshelf right here. Right, so I'm morphing into that, and really that makes a total of 5 in this region, right? So many times you'll see, not many times, but sometimes you will see infestors in those bookshelf spots. Right, as for the other hiding spots, right? One thing you should really look for is like a pair of flower pots. Like as you see, these flower pots come in pairs, so one of them has to be fake. The same thing happens over here, right? If you see a pair of flower pots, it has to be fake. So as you can see, 1, 2 flower pots, one of them's fake. Same thing sort of happens over here, but instead it's TNT. Right? Obviously, there shouldn't be any flower pots over here, but you shouldn't see a pair of TNT like this. Right? Or obviously, you shouldn't see one next to it. Right? As for bookshelves, right? Basically, I mean, you might see a bookshelf here, but really it's pretty easy to see that these stairs only have 2 bookshelves with it, and then we have obviously 2 other ones. Usually you don't see bookshelves over here that much. I wouldn't worry about the cauldron too much, just kind of know it's there. But there is a spot over here that you could hide as a cauldron. I've sometimes seen cauldrons hide in this specific slot. I think it's definitely important to know this one. Right? Most of the time it's going to be hiders hiding inside the flower cauldrons. Now we get to this circular region, where there actually is another escape route. You can obviously exit. You see, it's basically like a balcony. And then we have these stairs right here. You can obviously just go down the stairs directly, but as you can see, you can actually move through here, right? And instead of just going down the stairs, you can actually go completely down them by going down here, right in the front right there. Right, so as you can see, right in the front, you could drop down there. And I thought there was another way. I guess you can sort of just fall down here. I thought there was another way, but I'm not remembering it at the moment. There is another way at all. I don't think there is. But basically, that's the idea, right? Notice, right, you don't have to go completely around it, but you can also, like, sort of go in between it as long as you make the jump. Right? Just like that, as long as you make it. Like, otherwise you'll just fall down here, and you're obviously kind of stuck. You gotta sort of try again. Right? So, that's some things to observe about that. As for melon spots, you can sometimes see a melon hide on top of this sleeve. But usually you don't have to worry about the melons. These bookshelves you don't really have to worry about. Now, as for this room right here, right, you can actually get inside this room, right? You can move through paintings. Now, the only thing you gotta know is that there are doors here. So, no matter whether or not the doors are open or closed, you can always enter from this side, right? But when the doors are closed, right, strictly closed, you can't enter from this side, the side that the waterfall is on, so you can't really enter that way. But it is really common to find hiders in there, so it's definitely important that you know this. Right? Now what we're going to do is we're going to head into this back area and talk about all the different hiding spots in here. One thing to observe is that the block files are significantly larger, right? We'll start with the leftmost side of it, right, the bookshelves. The most common spot to find a bookshelf is in this back corner right here. Sometimes you even have a flower pot here because it obviously makes them a little more hidden. There's no real other spot you have to know for the bookshelves though. For the TNTs, right, I would just kind of know that there's 2 on the end, so you shouldn't see 3 like this, right? If there's 1 on top right here, that would make only 1 on the end. You also shouldn't see 3 like this, right? There should only be 2 TNTs on the end there. There's a total of 3 TNTs on the top of the stack, so you can see 4 like this, it's fake. And then just kind of know that there's 5 TNT below it, right? that might also help. If you have a rectangle of TNT like that, you also shouldn't see TNT with this TNT. That's basically it for the TNTs. Right. As for the furnaces, right, notice there's a hole right here a furnace could hide at. So this would be fake. Obviously, you could even see flower pots in here. Notice there's a total of 2 furnaces there. So if you see 3 furnaces like this, it's fake. And really, the other thing you should look for is to make sure that the furnace stack isn't squared off at any of these edge pieces. Right, be squared off if that's happening. Because really, we should just have a diagonal line of furnaces here. Right. Also, you shouldn't see 2 furnaces in a row like this. One spot I sort of forgot to mention is you might have a flower pot in this slot right here. Right, now for the hay bales, the way I like to think about it is I like to think about the number 2, right? First off, there's a total of 2 hay bales on top, so if you see 3 like this, or like this, it's fake. Right, but also if you see, right, also the thing you gotta notice here is that we have 2 hay bales on each of the 3 edges. So 2, 2, and 2. Makes it really easy to memorize. So if there's 3 on the edge like this, then it would be fake. You might even see 3 on the edge like this. Right? So that would be fake as well. That's basically it for the hay bale stack. Right? As for the cauldron stack, it's basically just it's sort of the same exact thing that we saw for the furnaces, right? If it's squared off, then we know it's fake. So, pretty easy for the cauldrons. Usually it's just flower pots hiding inside them. As for these melons, right, there's a total of 2 melons on the top of the stack. So if you see 3, for instance, like this, or like this, right, 3 melons on top, that would be fake. Another thing is you shouldn't see 2 melons in a row in front of the stack. Like 2 melons in a row like this is fake, and 2 melons in a row like this is fake. Right, after that we have these bookshelves. Now for the bookshelves, right, basically there's only one spot a bookshelf could go if you think about it, right? This is the only spot that a bookshelf could reasonably hide at. So really, if both of them are a square of bookshelves, then this is going to be the fake one, right? So this would be fake. Right. I just want to say right. I just had to say that. Okay, next we got these cauldrons, right? The most common spot for a cauldron, honestly, is obviously hiding inside the cauldrons, but there could be an infestor inside that cauldron, right? So it's important to know that spot. Now, I guess the other spots you might see, notice there's 2 cauldrons in a row. This is sort of 2 in a row, but really there's only 1 here. Really, I guess you could think about it like there's 2 in a row here, and there's 2 cauldrons diagonal like this. So if you see 3 cauldrons in a row like this, or 3 cauldrons grouped together on the left side like this, right, or like this, then it would be fake. Right, and so really, that's really what you're looking for. Right, right, okay, no, I'm just kidding. Okay, so for these bookshelves, right, it looks like we have a lot going on in the bookshelf stack. And yeah, it's one of the more complicated structures. Because when they updated it, they made really large block files. But really, the first thing to notice is there's 3 bookshelves on top of the stack. So if you see 4, right, for instance, like this, right, then it would be fake. Right? And notice how there's a slot right here a bookshelf could hide at, right? So something like this. Whenever you see 3 bookshelves in a row over here, you know you have a fake one. So this would be a fake bookshelf. Again, 3 bookshelves in a row. It would be fake. You might sometimes see a bookshelf right here, so I would just kind of memorize this spot. Right? Honestly, that's basically it for the bookshelf stack. For the melon stack over here, it's somewhat similar to the melon stack over here, in which you have 2 melons on top. Well, that's the same thing you have here. You also have 2 melons on top, so really, you'd see 3 melons on top, like for instance like that, or like this. Right? Either one of those, you see it, it would have to be fake. Right? If you see 3 melons in a row on the right side like this, it's fake. Right? And there should be 2 melons sticking out like this. So for instance, you see a melon like this, then that would be fake. Another thing you might see, right, because this melon stack only goes 2 blocks high, right, you might actually see a melon go all the way to the top like this. This even happens sometimes. So that's really all we got for the melon stack, right? Now, just like the painting we talked about earlier, you can actually go inside this area, and there's also a painting right here you can go inside, so really this is just a hidden room that you can go inside. Most of the time you have non-ideal hiders in here. As for ideal hiders, the typical spot is to find a note block in this specific spot. Right? Of course you could find a flower pot sometimes, but it's obviously they're fake, right? That's basically it for this room. And also, when the doors are closed, you can still enter from both sides. As you can see, right? We can enter this with the doors closed. We just have to, same exact story here, right? Even though the door is closed, we can still enter. We have to open the door. Now, when the doors are closed, that means someone went in there, right? Usually, we get to these doors later in the game, so it's possible that a hunter opened them. Right? But obviously, this is for non-ideal hiders, so it's not really super important. But for this video, right? The last region we got to go over is this little region right here. Right? As for over here, there are actually bookshelves in the ground. For instance, right here in the center of the path, there's actually a bookshelf specifically right there. If I morph into a flower pot real quick so I can show you the spots, right? So there's a bookshelf in the center, but it turns out there's also a bookshelf next to each cauldron. So there's really a total of 3 bookshelves in the ground here, each separated by 1 block. So there's a bookshelf there, and a bookshelf there. I'm pretty sure you can actually only infest into 2 of them, though. One of them you actually fall to the ground. Or you don't fall to the ground, but like it's obvious that you're there. I think it's only 3 of them, but obviously you should just know that there's 3 bookshelves there anyway. Just know that there's 3 there. Right, next we have this room, right? There's a total of 3 flower pots, so if you see 4, it's fake. Right, obviously a flower pot on top of this furnace is fake. I wouldn't worry about the furnace so much. Right, you usually don't see a furnace there. In this room, right, basically, if you see more than 2 TNT, like you see, or if you see 2 TNT, then it's fake, right? If you see 2 melons, like this, then it would be fake. And, of course, the other thing is if you see 2 flower pots, it would be fake. So really, those are the 3 components of this room. You have TNT, melon, and flower pots. Really, one of each in this room. Over here, because we have enough time, actually, the melon stack and the furnace stack are identical, right? Because 3-block staircase, 2-block staircase. 3-block staircase, 2-block staircase. So they're literally identical. All you gotta remember is that they're staircases. So if you see a square, 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 again, it's squared off. At no matter where they go, it's squared off. So it's fake. And for the flower pots over here, it's just a total of 4. The typical spot to find a flower pot is right here. And that's really it for this video. Hey.